Welcome everyone to today's Open Your Doors Day podcast. Now I'm joined by Nathan John, an inspired professional who turned challenges into opportunities, from securing £400,000 in offers by the age of 18 to working at a Fortune 500 technology company. Nathan now inspires others as a keynote speaker and workshop facilitator. Let's dive into his journey and learn how he empowers young professionals to unlock their potential. Nathan John, welcome to the Open Your Doors podcast. How are you?
Pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me. I'm good.
Fantastic. Now, when the team told me that you're coming on today's show, I was truly excited because I know when our audience hears about your journey, your challenges and what you now do, they are going to leave here inspired, but also they'll have actionable tips as to what they can take forward. So can you tell them a bit about what they're going to learn from our podcast today?
Yeah, for sure. So as James kind of alluded to, I'm a keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, as well as working in corporate at the moment. So I do a lot on kind of like mindset, confidence, kind of success, all of those kind of topics. So definitely got some gems for you guys today.
Fantastic. And can you tell them about your journey growing up at any of the times?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in South London for most of my life. My journey, I say, is a bit interesting because so at the beginning I grew up in a 2-bedroom flat in South London, and when I was in like year 4, year 5, we basically got told by my dad that we were going to move to Dubai. And around that time, we didn't really know what Dubai was or like what that meant for us, but essentially we went from living in that flat to living now in a villa, and like it was sunny every day. We were going to a like international school and everything. And I think for that period of time, we were like, oh yeah, like life has changed now. Everything's different. Like no one can really chat to us anymore. But 2 years later, we went straight back into that 2-bedroom flat. And the only difference between us leaving and coming back was I now had to share a room with 5 of my younger sisters instead of 4. And my dad stayed in Dubai instead of coming back with us. My dad and my mum were both extremely hardworking, both like working class. My dad works in banking. And my mum was like studying for a degree at the time. So even though they like tried their very best, it meant that financially the situation wasn't great. Like there was 6 of us. And like we were sharing bunk beds and that stuff in one room. So it was tough for a bit. And I think for me, that almost like triggered a sense of like, okay, cool. I need to start making money like yesterday. And so I started to kind of draw towards the only type of people I knew that are making money around that time, which were people either like selling drugs or doing fraud. And so even though I never like directly got involved in what they were doing, there were a couple times where like I could have got arrested. And I would hear about my friends getting arrested, come school next day and just be like, oh, that's a normal thing. There was another time where I was walking through Peckham with some of my friends and I could have got stabbed because there was someone else that basically walked up to us and I was acting in a way to try and impress my friends, like a roadman or whatever. And like that wasn't who I was. But I could have lost my life because I was trying to be someone that they wanted me to be. And so long story short, like kind of removed myself from that situation and that group, went to like a different sixth form, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really know what I wanted to get into, but I heard about like technology. I was into gaming back then as well. So I was like, okay, this could be a fit. Did a lot more like research around it, found out about the apprenticeship scheme. I did about like 25 applications or so, got a bunch of rejections. And it was really tough at that time as well. I feel like sixth form was a hard time for me, just like mentally and everything. So that was hard, but bouncing back from that, I think taught me a lot, like from a resilience perspective, showing me like to stay focused on my goal, not look at like what the people around me are doing and just like hone in on my path. And so, yeah, got the apprenticeship after all those rejections and kept going. And along the way then got into public speaking. And yeah, now I speak at like organizations and events and that stuff across the UK, kind of inspiring kind of my generation, Gen Z, and then a bit older as well, like millennials and that stuff.
I love that. I love that. And, because we are a socially based organization, there are several things that I really want to pick out in what you spoke about.
Mhm.
The first thing when you spoke about, growing up back again in South London, and really wanted to make money as soon as possible.
Mm.
How you looked at those around you at what they were doing, and what we say is often people get their advice, their direction based on proximity. So, and rather than context. So this is why when we talk to our young people, our success seekers, we try to encourage them to be matching mentors in the direction they want to get into, in the sector they want to get into, so they can get more contextualized
Yeah.
advice. And then the second thing I really loved about your story is how you spoke about how a changing environment really helped you transition your direction that you're going into. Yeah. And so I guess when I speak about those two things, anything else you'd like to add about those two things?
Yeah, for sure. I think firstly, a very, very good point you've raised about like often we look to the people around us and like for some of the things that we want to do, go to them for advice. But I remember I even was listening to a podcast the other day and there's another speaker, Frederick Afrifa, he said that one of the biggest lessons he had to learn was asking his friends for advice when they'd never done the things that he was trying to do. Like they would be giving him advice that wouldn't make sense, like it wouldn't be helpful. And like that makes a bunch of sense because if I'm asking someone that's never done what I'm trying to go and do, they're not going to be best suited to help me get to where I'm trying to get to. But if I'm not asking someone that's like been there and actually done it, they're gonna give me like at least their journey to get in there, and I can look and see and say, okay, cool. This is what they did. This is how I can kind of take that and like change it up a bit, which is what, to be fair, even when I'm like trying to give advice to people, I think there's no one size fits all when it comes to giving advice, to be honest. The best I can do is tell you what I've been through, tell you what I've done, and then for someone else to look at it and be like, okay, cool. How can I take and apply some of the resources or take and apply some of the like concepts that he's used and change it up a bit for it to fit my situation? Because everyone's situation is different. And so me telling you what you should and shouldn't do like that, it just won't work. So yeah, and yeah, on the environment piece, I think your environment has a massive part to play on who you become. I think the people around you, like the kind of things you're tuning into, even now, like if we're looking at social media and stuff like that, like the content that you watch, it plays a big part on the type of person you become because like around 95% of the brain is your subconscious mind. So that's the part that controls like most of our actions that we don't have to think about, right? And the way that gets kind of taught is through repetition. So all the content we're watching, the people we're around, all of that stuff, the more we're hearing from them, the more that stuff is almost like pouring into us. That's what we have to pour into other people. Like your inputs determine your outputs. So I think that environment change was massive for me, definitely.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Once again, you are giving us so much gold here. And especially when I'm gonna move on in a second, but I just really want to like just really hone in on some of the things we just covered just now. Um, when we spoke about kind of a lot of people get things with proximity, one of the things you mentioned was about even if we get advice from the people who are in the right context of where we're trying to head to, it's really important to remember that anything we're applying, we have to apply it in our own personal situation, our own personal context. Because what happens for someone that works well may not work well for ourselves, what it like to ourselves, based on where we are on our journey, our habits, our belief systems, and everything else. The other part about that is sometimes when we ask the people closest to us for advice and guidance, as well as they may not have traveled the journey that we're trying to go into, but also often they have that personal relationship with us. So in Britain, we're very polite. Well, depends on household you're in. British people are very, and the Lord. So it's just really important for us to conscious of what we absorb, we go to, and for what we go to them for. And the other aspect is you mentioned is that we control the environment. So if you find that your environment is not good for you, it's not helping you grow, you can always change that from what you listen to the people you speak to what you absorb in your mind. Like, wow, like, you've given us so much gold today.
I actually want to touch on that environment piece, just a bit because it's something I'm still going through now, and I think it's something you continually have to adjust, right? And I think all the time we hear about like the people you're around and like your network is your net worth and all of that kind of stuff. And hearing it is nice, but putting it into practice can be difficult at times because, especially because, as you said, we're very polite over here, innit? So if I'm hearing like my network is my net worth and my friends that I have now, they're not very high net worth. Like they're not the net worth I'm trying to be, you know what I mean? So if I'm having to change that now and I'm hearing that like, oh, does that mean I need to cut off all my friends for me to like improve my network? And I think the way I look at it now is like, for me, it doesn't mean that I have to necessarily completely like let go of those relationships or those friendships. It just means that like those relationships might need to change. So if it's the friendships that I have now, those are the people that I'm going to and I'm seeking almost like career advice and that stuff, or sort of like almost like unofficial mentorship from some of my friends. And it's like, as we said, right, the people around us that they haven't done what we're trying to do, it doesn't make sense to continue to use that relationship in that way. So that the nature of that relationship then might have to change, or it might be that I have to distance myself from that person, but it doesn't mean I go completely cold turkey. There's no like love lost. It's just the nature of the relationship changes. So that's something that I think I struggled with for a bit. So just wanted to drop that in.
Oh, yes. And I'm going to build on top of that as well because it's so true. Like, you're right. Because, we're all on this journey. We're all trying to achieve our success and we're all kind of trying to figure it out as we go along. And you're right. A lot of people do, when we talk about your network, your network is your net worth. And you're right. People do think, oh, that means I have to get rid of my friends. But actually, what we're saying is you need to remember that you can't go to everyone. You can't treat everyone the same. You can't go to everyone for the same piece of advice. You have to understand that who is in your network and what are the things that you should go to them for. So there's some friends that it's all about going out to parties at Ibiza, Bali, like travel and enjoy yourselves with. There's some friends that you're gonna have to go to who will be the ones who challenge you. There'll be some friends you go to who the ones who pick you up when you're feeling down. And you have to understand what are the strengths of the people in your network. But also at the same time, even if your friends have not done what you want them, are not where you want to go, or what you have to do is you have to understand that yes, you can have a mentor, but actually you can turn your friendship circle into a growth circle. And what I mean by that is often we meet our friends and they're like, oh, what's been happening? How's it going? All that type of stuff. But if you want to grow with your friendship network, you have to kind of treat it a bit like a mastermind group. So have some questions like, since we last met, what have been your challenges? What do you want us to focus on today that's holding you back or that you need help with? Yep. What have been the wins? What have been the reflections? Like, start to ask yourselves some questions that will help you all as a circle grow. And then also hopefully decide that on the aims that you want to achieve over the next 6 to 12 months and use that growth circles to hold you accountable to achieve the goals that you're trying to set. That's a great way to if you want to be with that friendship circle, but everyone has different strengths, that's a great way to kind of unite yourselves around growth.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And he also mentioned something that was really interesting. I'm going to go into here, which is you spoke about repetition. You said something else, but what we want to bring that down into is what are the strategies or habits that helped you stay towards your goals?
Okay, cool. So again, this one took me a while to figure out, I think. And I think, so speaking about like the subconscious mind and that being the largest part of the brain, and so training that through repetition, I think for me is the best way that I can sort of develop my mindset. So what that looks like is I've seen what I need to do is set a goal firstly, make that super specific. So if I'm saying, for example, I want to become a solutions engineer by March 2026 at, I don't know, Fortune 500 tech company, let's say. So that's super specific. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I've got a timeline for it. Like I have something to work towards. Then I need to look at, okay, cool. How am I going to actually do that? So it might be I need to start networking with other solutions engineers. It might be I need to do some research into what does the field entail and all of that kind of stuff. So I break it down into different almost like sub goals. And then once I have those things, it's like I have my sort of actions. So for the networking one, I can say to myself, okay, cool. To hit that, I'm going to go to a networking event for solutions engineers every month or every other week. So I build it into like my life so that it's like I don't have to even think about my goals. It's just like it's part of my routine. And then along the way, I'm taking my goals off. And it's just like, yeah, I'm becoming the person that I want to be without having to like consciously think about it. And I like it works so well for me because I haven't got the greatest of memories, to be honest. And I've got ADHD. So for me, if I don't write things down, I forget things very quickly. So building things into like processes and habits and like into my routine, like just makes life a lot easier, to be honest.
Wow, I love that. And is that how you were able to secure £400,000 in offers by the age of 18?
Yeah, I'd say so even without knowing it, to be fair, back then I had my goal of I think it was just getting an apprenticeship, to be honest. I didn't really want to go down the uni route because um, I think for me, I was a lot more interested in sort of like, I say creativity.
Mm.
Um, and I don't mean that in the traditional sense, even though so I play the drums. I love music. Um, but I think even that kind of found its way into my work. So even with what I do now, working in tech, I still prefer being more like client facing, like speaking to people. And obviously that's public speaking is probably why I enjoy that as well. Um, but I think an apprenticeship gave me that opportunity to be more creative and decide my path more than doing university would, to be honest, because I looked at it and I was like, the type of apprenticeship I could do where I can like move roles and all that kind of stuff, it just fit better for me. So that was my goal. And then I think from there, like I had a list that I made of like all the apprenticeships I wanted to apply to and that stuff. Um, and I basically like set a target of each, I think it was like every day or every other day or something like that, I'd complete a apprenticeship application.
Wow.
So again, kind of like building it into my routine. And then over time, like I'd have like a base kind of template for an apprenticeship application where I'd have like some of the typical questions and that kind of stuff, answers to them. And then I just like tweak them to make them more fitted to the actual offer I was applying to, and like say my CV and all that stuff.
I love this. And I mean, I'm going to come back to ADHD in a second. However, I want to really highlight is when people hear others who've kind of navigated that career journey, got a job offer or achieved some form of success, they often think it's hard. And it is hard. However, what you'll find is along the ways, people have set up their own structures, their own processes to help them achieve that.
Yeah.
You know, one little thing that you mentioned there is not little, but you spoke about you built yourself a template. And
Mm.
then I'm sure you must have done other things to make sure that you could achieve that daily goal, but achieve with quality. You want to share with us any additional stuff around that as well? Oh,
Yeah, for sure. I think I'd say things like job applications and that kind of stuff. I'd say I agree with you and say they're not like complex or complicated, but they are hard. So because of the amount of like repetitions you have to put into it and the amount of just the volume that you have to apply to and all that kind of stuff, it makes it difficult in it. Like it's not easy, but it's not complicated. It's simple, but it's not easy. So I'd say yeah, anything's like templates or I remember I had like a notes in my phone. I had like a note of I think I had like the stages of the apprenticeships I was in. So it's like I had a bit of a tracker almost of my notes. Um, I could have done it in Excel, and now I've spoken to other apprentices and that stuff, and they had their own like Excel formats of tables and that stuff with the application stages and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that would have been a lot simpler to be fair, but it worked. I'm here. So yeah, I think anything like that that you can do to kind of like simplify the process more to make it more simple. It will still be difficult, but just make it simpler, like so you don't have to think as much.
I love that. I love that. We spoke about repetition. We spoke about creating your own processes, but you also spoke about the importance of simplification. And one of the things I loved about what you said is the fact that you spoke to other apprentices and you found out they all had their own systems.
Mm.
And this shows that the importance of having your own system, because what I find is a lot of people just do. We just make applications. We send out 1,000 applications, but we don't even reflect on it. We don't create simplified processes, and we don't really work on improving the quality of the output. So we put in lots of input in, not getting that much result. We're getting lots of output, but it's not the right outputs that we're looking for. And what we say to our success seekers is sometimes it's good just to pause for a second, reflect, look at all the things that you're doing and identify where are the failure points in the repetitions or the actions you're taking. And also, if your goal is to get that job, break it down to stages and say to yourself, what is the stage am I stuck in? Am I stuck in application stage, interview stage, assessment stage? And then you can focus your energy on those stages to help you move forward. And with that being said, I'm sure you face lots of rejections and setbacks. And what advice do you have for others facing similar challenges?
Yeah, for sure. This is one of the things I actually talk about quite a bit, to be fair. So yeah, in my apprenticeship kind of like application journey process, whatever we want to call it, I got around 22 rejections. And I think at first it was very like disheartening. And it almost made me think like, why am I even doing this? Like they're showing me that like, or they're telling me I'm not good enough or I don't have what it takes. But I think firstly, I had to remember why I was doing it. So this is the importance of having a goal, I'd say. An apprenticeship for me was bigger than just like another route to uni. It was almost like the first step to me changing my life because I saw the amount of opportunity I could get from it. So the people I could meet, like the access that I would have to events, to spaces that I just wouldn't have access to if I was a uni student, if I'm being honest. And so because I saw how big of an opportunity it was, it made me like look back and be like, okay, cool. So this is why I'm doing it. But I think having the why sometimes doesn't help when you're like actually going through it and you're feeling the emotion. Like it's easier to say, okay, cool, this is what I'm trying to get to. But when you're actually there, it's hard to, I guess, almost come back from that place. And I think to that, I would say like, it's okay to like take a break.
Mm.
It's okay to like almost take a step back a bit and be like, okay, cool, I'm facing all this rejection, all that kind of stuff. And this is tough right now, but that's all it is. It's just right now. Like once I get the apprenticeship, I won't even care about all the rejections I went through. Like, and it's the same for anything else that you're going through that's tough in life. I feel like once you achieve it, you'll look back and be like, oh yeah, I had to go through all that stuff, but you probably won't even remember. Like give it a couple of years and you won't remember that whole process where you were like crying and like you were complaining to your friend every day on the phone, on FaceTime and that stuff. Like you won't care. And I think lastly on that, like that process is where you almost get built. So in the olden days, I say in the olden days, that's a very weird way to phrase it, but a while ago the way that they tested gold was by putting it through the fire,
Mm.
right? And say like in the like rich households, they would have like gold and silver like tableware, so like spoons, knives, forks, all that kind of stuff. And then they'd have ones for like wood. And the gold ones would be for like special occasions. They'd be like the really special, really good quality ones, yeah. And then the wood ones would be for everyday use. When you put the wood in the fire, what happens is the wood burns, right? Obviously. So the wood turns into carbon. So the substance of the wood changes. But when you put gold into the fire, the gold might change shape, but the substance of the gold stays the same. And what we can essentially like take from that is sometimes we're going through a season where we feel like we're in the fire and we feel like things are like unbearable. But really what's happening to us is like we're going through that fire to be tested to see if we're gold. So we need to be reshaped to become the person that gets that apprenticeship. You need to go through a process where you change as a person to achieve your goal. But the substance of who you are, so like your values and ethics and all of that kind of stuff, they stay the same. All that changes is like your mindset and maybe your environment needs to change in that time. So you're being reshaped, you're being molded to become the person that walks into that situation and owns it. But if you then crumble in that situation and you're like the wood, you turn into carbon, your substance changes. And if you're trying to get to a position that's highly coveted or you're trying to get somewhere that's extremely competitive, you need to be that gold. You need to stick through all of the challenges, stick through the fire, essentially. And you will see what you come out of the other end looking like. You'll look back and be like, damn, I don't even know how I was that person before.
You're giving us so much fire today. And you're giving us so much fire. And it's so true. As you're speaking, I was feeling every single word that you're saying. And, just to put in context, we say in the short term, life always feels like a horror movie. In the long term, it's a comedy. And
Yeah.
so true. And then the other aspect that you said is, I love this, which is everything that has a financial value in this world has gone through some form of process, testing, reshaping to be that final product that you hold in your hand, whether that is gold, whether that is silver, whether that is everything has gone through some kind of process testing to get to where it needs to get to. And each person is just going through that process. Powerful. Now, I know that you've been, you also said something that I really want to touch on as well. And because often when I spoke to some of my friends in the past, they would be like, I don't want to change. I don't want to change who I am to get to that place. I don't want to change this. And you're so right. Which is the fact that, and I'm going to relate this back to the workplace as well. Is if I relate it back to the workplace, we often hear companies will say to us, we want you to be yourself when you come to the office. And what we find is that some people, when they come as themselves, they get a rude shock because they're like, I'm just going to, come in and just say, what's up, bro? How you doing? Slang, the bop, those things. But what they mean is, we are different people depending on who we're next to. So like the person that we are in a club is going to be slightly different to the person we are in a church or with our mom and dad. The thing that remains constant is what you said. It is our values and our belief systems. So when we talk about growth and changing our environment and changing things to get to where we need to get to, we're not saying change the things that inherently make you you.
Mm.
But we are saying, like you said, change your environment, change some of your habits,
Mm.
all the other things that you'll need to change in order to grow as an
Yeah,
individual.
yeah.
Oh, powerful, powerful. And now that you've achieved your goals, you've achieved different successes in life. Um, at this stage, how has your definition of success evolved?
Love that question. I think I'd say success is definitely not a word I can tie a definition to, I don't think. Um, when I think of success now, it's more like it's almost something that I get to define every day, to be honest. Like when I look at being successful as more than just financial or career, which is what in the past I might have looked at it as. I think it's a combination of me being almost the person that I look to the future and be like, that's the person I want to be. So that includes like being there for friends, for family, making sure I'm in line with my faith and like religion. I'm Christian. So yeah, making sure I'm like reading the Bible, going to church and that's spending time with God. Um, all of those things, like if I'm doing all of those things well, then I get to look at myself and be like, okay, I feel successful. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's almost like the challenge every day. Like that's waking up is like, okay, cool. This is what I've got to almost live up to. Um, so that's how I look at success now, to be honest.
Well, I love that. I love that. And I want to bring that back as well for some of our success seekers who are current on their journey. Like, what are because you said it, like when I'm doing those things, that's when I feel well with myself.
Mm,
And if you apply back to the lessons you learned
mm.
through your career journey, and what are the things that you think are most relevant to our young job seekers today?
Okay, cool. So I think I think one of the things earlier on that I looked at and I would say like, oh, I'm not successful, I'm not doing well, is I would define it by the result. So if I don't get a job offer, I'm not successful. Or if I don't get a job offer, like I'm not doing well, or like I'm not in a good place right now. But if I look at the amount of work I've put in, if I look at my input, then it's like I've done a lot, like a lot more than I ever would have done maybe a year ago or a couple of months ago. So I think it's also like looking at, I guess, where you are now compared to where you used to be. Like people say all the time, right? It's not you versus everyone else, it's you versus you. And I think it's so, so true. Like the way that you grow the most is by comparing yourself with who you were yesterday and who you said you wanted to be. So I think it's that and also looking at like, okay, what have I done? Not what have I achieved necessarily, but what have I done? Because the thing that you're shooting for might be the most difficult thing you've ever had to go for in your life. And you got to give yourself some grace there, like be like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process, as we said, right? Like for the gold to be made into the utensils, for it to be made into like the frame for the painting, for like whatever shape it needs to get molded into, it doesn't happen like that. It's a process. And I think we look on like online and like social media and all that kind of stuff and we see they call us the microwave generation, in it. Like we want things to be done in 2 minutes. And like the big things, the things that are really important, those are the things that take time. And you have to, I think that sometimes the hardest thing is just sitting through that and like nurturing the small thing until it becomes big.
I love that. I love that. And I love this. Like I said, you are giving us so much skill today. And I just want to like re-emphasize some of the things you just said there. Which is don't focus on the end goal. Focus on the wins along the way. And focus on the each step, the process, not the end goal. And it reminds me of a story of a coach who coached a world champion runner. And he said, when he first started training her, she was like 12 years old. And she ran, she came dead last. She was like crying. And he goes, no, you're not losing. You're the first person that ran this time I've ever coached. And next
Wow.
time, beat that record. And each time you beat that record, he should, they celebrate, high five until one day she became world champion. And you
Wow.
really, yeah, yeah. And what you said really emphasized that story, which is it's you versus yourself. It's you working each and every single day to be better than you were, better today than you were yesterday. And it's realizing that success doesn't happen overnight, but it happens in those small things that you do each and every single day. So wow. Wow, this is why I'm so glad we had you on here to really like I love
Thank
it.
you, man. Thank you.
Um,
Let me just change this real quick. My camera. Okay, cool.
love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, so we've covered lessons that we've covered. What lessons have you learned from your career journey that will be most relevant to our young success seekers today, which is fantastic. It is do not look at anyone else. Focus your own journey, recognizing that it's the things that you do every single day that matters the most that will help you get to where you want to get into or what you want to achieve. Now, were there any role models or mentors along the way that have helped shape your path?
Oh, I think I'd say a big one for me, which might be a bit controversial with some of the younger people that are listening, is J. Cole.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
Definitely. I think I'd say it's bigger than the the music though. Like I think his music is amazing and like he's my favorite artist. I don't really listen to secular music anymore, to be fair, but I still say he's one of my favorite artists. And I say that because the things that he talks about in his songs, it's not the usual like rap lyrics. Um, I think some of the things that he's spoken about has even like brought me closer to like started taking my faith more seriously, like back when I was in sixth form and that kind of stuff. And um, kind of some of the things I've spoken about today, like me versus me, and looking at like how do I change myself, like a lot more kind of like introspective rather than looking out at the world and like trying to blame someone else. But I'd also say because of the person that he is, like the type of things that he does, he's very like value oriented and he does stuff. I saw some of the other day where like he went back to his hometown um, and he like just donated a bunch of money. He would like spend time with like upcoming artists and that kind of stuff and like school kids and that stuff that are trying to become like producers or rappers or something like that and like literally jump on FaceTimes with them and doing that kind of stuff for like years without promoting it or like without anyone covering it or anything like that. So I think things like that I've seen him do, it's like that's almost I think because I look at some of the ways I should be as a Christian when I look in like the Bible and that kind of stuff. And when I see some of those things like lining up with some of the things he does, it's almost like I could look at that, especially more when I was less serious about like my faith and that kind of stuff. And I could look at that and be like, okay, cool. That's almost like a bit of a blueprint for me to like start changing and like, again, look at some of the things he's doing or he's done and be like, okay, cool. How can I apply that to my situation now? So yeah, I'd say he's definitely been a big one for me, to be honest.
Wow, that is powerful. And you know, one of the things that you really brought to my attention there was how we all can be role models to everyone. We
Mm.
even if we don't know we're a role model or mentor, but this is why it's really important that we act our best selves at all the time. Because it could be a family member, it could be that school kid, it could be that someone that's just watching you on social media. Everyone is there's someone out there looking up to you that you don't know. And what your actions, your words, what you do can influence them in the right direction or the wrong direction. And it's our duty to inspire others to be the best they can be. And so, I'm sure if Joe Cole was hearing this, he's gonna be really honored to hear that. Yeah. And I love that. I'm going to follow him more now because I love his principles and how he's living life. Wow.
Yeah, man. I think apart from him,
Yeah.
I have to definitely give a shout out to Mum, 100%, man. Like when I think about like just pure work ethic, and someone that just like gets on, like does what needs to be done. Yeah. My dad as well. Like I think along the way I've realized our parents aren't always the superheroes we imagine them to be when we were younger, but I still have to look up to them and be like, yeah, they were my first role models, if anything.
Mhm.
So yeah, man, I have to give a massive shout out to them for sure.
Oh, oh, yes, man. Hats off to the parents, hats off to mum and dad. Yes, and you're so right. I mean, they teach us our values of these systems. They are they are the torch that help us determine the steps that we take in life going forward onto become adults. And then you're like, okay, we don't have to fend for ourselves. What's going on here?
When did this happen, man?
Take me back. You know what? I'm conscious that we've covered lots of tips. See, I really want to focus on where you are now. I want to find out about the work you do with companies and organizations. I think we need to let people know more about you.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so I do a lot. It's mainly like keynote speeches that I deliver on some of the things you've spoken about today, to be honest. So um, I as I said, I try to stay away from like general blanket advice and more tell you what I've done so that I'm speaking from a place of experience and not theory. So I talk about a lot of the things that I've kind of been through. So things like resilience. Um, One of the big things I learned when I got into like the corporate world was overcoming fear. Like I think there's a massive thing right now, maybe post-COVID, like the amount of people that will not do something out of fear or because of a lack of self-confidence is like astounding. I speak to people like on a daily basis and I see, or they say to me that like they're not really too confident or like they don't want to do this thing out of fear or because they're afraid of this or so those kind of areas I speak on because yeah, those are things I think I had to overcome quite quickly, and I've massively benefited from for sure. So yeah, the kind of things around like mindset as well. Yeah, man, success, those kind of topics.
I love that. And the thing is, because of your experience, because of your background experience, but also the fact that you came in as an apprentice. Also because of the fact, I'm gonna do that bit again. Sorry guys.
Let me put this up real quick. My other one's storage is run out. This one has as well, actually. Let me go into my photos and delete some stuff.
No problem. Of course. And to be honest, that's really great. The reason why I feel that more organizers to get you in to speak is because of the fact that there's several things about your journey that makes you as a speaker really inspirational and actionable for those who will listen to you. The first is your background, personal background that you come from. The fact that you got ADHD and the fact that you entered organizations as an apprentice. Now, when we speak to organizations at Generation Success, we know that they have several struggles. We know that one of their struggles is attracting diverse people from diverse backgrounds into the entry pathways, whether that is apprenticeships, graduate schemes. We know that some of their challenges is how do they support people from underrepresented backgrounds to be their best selves in their organizations. And the third challenge we know is there are lots of organizations who invest a lot of energy, a lot of money, a lot of resources into increasing the diversity of organizations, only to see that when people from diverse backgrounds enter their companies, they often leave after several years.
Mm.
And they leave for different reasons, which some organizations have been able to put a figure on. But one of the things that we know that really works really well is when you bring in people like yourself, Nathan, to inspire, to share tactics, to share techniques, to create safe spaces for underrepresented groups to talk, to learn from. It really does help to move the dial. But also what helps is being able is for those managers, it's for those co-workers to hear about some of the experiences of their co-workers from someone who they don't know yet. So there is
Yeah.
they don't have that they don't have you remove that kind of subjectiveness that comes from proximity. so that they can be like, oh, wow, so this is how someone who works at an organization feels. This is how they think. What can I do differently to help them be the best selves?
Mm.
So, and for me saying that, have you had, have you, are there any experiences that you can share with us of either your personal experiences or the talks you've given, how that's created insights in those who've heard you speak?
Yeah, definitely. So hearing everything you just said there, actually, there's a couple things I want to touch on. So I think firstly, if we're looking at getting more diverse people into like corporations and that kind of stuff, I think one of the challenges, especially with like apprenticeships, if I'm being very specific, it's more not even necessarily convincing students anymore or giving out like information to them and that stuff, because like a lot of them are aware of what an apprenticeship is now. And like the popularity of an apprenticeship over the past maybe 5 years has like skyrocketed, right? So it's become a lot more kind of, what's the word, competitive. But I think where the buy-in needs to come from more is from parents, because I speak to a lot of students that are like, they want to do an apprenticeship, but my mom is saying I have to go to uni. Or
Mm.
my dad is like, you're not doing no apprenticeship. Like, because they're still thinking it's like, you're making teas and coffees and that stuff. And it's like, my son is not making tea and coffee for no one. So I think it's more of a, a like, an educational piece for them, and like almost like working with the parents to show them like, no, this is like a massive opportunity. Um, for your child, and like could potentially be better for them than going down a more traditional pathway, right? Um, so I think I've had a lot of conversations with like different organizations and like schools and that kind of stuff about trying to do more education with parents. And some of them have been quite like receptive of it. I was on a panel like a couple months ago for one, like an event for students and parents to come in. I think that definitely helps, and like for the parents to directly speak to other apprentices as well and hear from them and be like, okay, cool, tell me what it's really like, and ask all of the questions that they want to ask. Yeah, really helpful. I think secondly, in terms of retention, if I look at my own experience and from some of the other people I've spoken to, I think one of the biggest things for me when I look at like my professional development, I'd say I don't know how much more
Mm.
some organizations could do, to be fair. Like I have to like lift my hat, or whatever the saying is, when it comes to things like training for like technical roles and like understanding all of that detail. I think when it comes to more personal development though, and I think we're in an age right now where when you look at the advancements in technology, so things like AI that are becoming a massive thing. I was listening to another podcast a couple of weeks ago that was speaking about how we've been through like the industrial age, you've had like the agricultural age and all of that kind of stuff. And the guy that was running it, he said right now we're in a integrated information age. So what that means is we each have our own like minds that we think with. So we've got our information from our experiences, our lives and all that kind of stuff. But we've also got this amazing, shiny new thing called artificial intelligence, right? So when you put the two together, that's where like it's a lot easier to generate like wealth and to just make money in that kind of area now, like where you're combining artificial intelligence and like human intelligence.
Mm.
Um, but what that means is as artificial intelligence is becoming adopted more by organizations and that stuff, a lot of the more like repetitive tasks and things that are like monotonous and that kind of stuff, people aren't being hired to do anymore. Um, and so the more like soft skills and things like being able to speak and like share ideas and like leadership and skills like that that you won't really learn from doing a online training course. Some of the things that have to be more in person to really be received and practiced. I think that's where there's a bit of a gap and where there could be more done, to be honest, to improve like employee development. And I think if I'm looking at myself, I would love to see more of that happen in some of the organizations that I'm like around.
Mm.
And I think it would definitely help in terms of someone staying somewhere. Like if I'm growing and it's like I can see for my career development in the next 5, 10 years, being in this place is going to help me not only growing like my career and like my skills and that stuff, but I'm also going to become like more able to like share big ideas with like senior leadership, or I'm more comfortable leading things, or I'm more comfortable like even people I've spoken to that are afraid to speak in meetings. And it's like having stuff around that to help them with like mindset and things like people, some people will look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's that fluffy stuff that everyone talks about. But it's like it's so real and you're missing a lot of value if those things aren't being developed. So I
Mm.
think for me, when I look at it, that's the area really that's almost being missed a bit, if I'm being honest.
Love that. No, that is powerful. And I just so for our young success seekers listening, Nathan's talk about make sure you explore AI and the future roles which are out there.
Hmm.
Now, and then for the HR or talent acquisition managers or the CEOs who might be listening, one of the things I really want to highlight is what Nathan said, which is in his experience, his organizations that he's worked at have done things really, really well. Now we know that that is not the same at every organization out there. But if you can listen to what he's saying, especially for us when we talk about early careers and social mobility, we speak about giving people's career pathways as a menu. So the menu is this is the trainings that you can do. This is your future career pathways. These are some of the things that you want to do to grow and learn and develop so that you can pick and choose what you like to do. What David said is at his organization, he's had the benefit of having the training, like seeing his career pathways growing, and that's helped him um, to be where he is through his apprenticeship journey. However, another thing he said, which was really important, is that being comfortable to ask questions, to challenge, is also another really important thing in terms of trying to retain your staff. Now, one of the things that we often hear back from some employers is the fact that they'll be like, oh yeah, some of our staff from ethnic minority backgrounds don't really speak up or like, we have candidates, you know, who aren't as talkative as other people that we have at our assessment center. Now, there are two ways you can look at that. You can look at the candidate themselves, or you can challenge yourself and say, actually, what is what is the thing about their journey, their experience up to that point with us that has created an environment for that person, that individual, or those people from those demographics that has stopped them being able to feel comfortable to ask those questions, to be able to speak in meetings, to be able to contribute as you'd like them to be contributing. What can we do as an organization to change and evolve their future people's journey so that doesn't happen again? So that's why I love having you here and you talk from your experiences, because there's so much things that everyone can learn from what you're saying. I want more organizations to have you as a keynote speaker so you can share with them some of the best practices that you've experienced in your journey. They should be replicated in their organizations.
Oh, thank you.
And with that being said, when we look at organizations, what can you do better to support young professionals, especially from underrepresented backgrounds that you've experienced so far in your journey?
Yeah, for sure. I think I would say one thing that's, and I know this is I guess maybe a challenge for smaller companies, but one thing that's been really beneficial for me is not being the only ethnic minority, like young professional in my company, like having other people that are going through the same experience as me. to like speak about some of the things that we're going through, and speak about like even be comfortable to speak about things like pay, and speak about things like our training and our development and like career progression, all that kind of stuff that maybe I wouldn't feel as comfortable speaking to someone else like off the jump that's from a different kind of background to me. I think maybe for smaller companies, having some sort of, I don't know, like co-working like group or some sort of collaboration with another company that, or I don't know, it could be a group of smaller companies that have young professionals. They don't have many, but they come together and they're able to like speak about their like experiences and that kind of stuff. It can even be like a kill two birds with one stone, right? Have five of those companies come and do a talent development session where they all come together, they bring their young people there, and they're able to meet other young professionals from different organizations and also get training to develop like their mindset and if it's like more confidence or public speaking or whatever, like those more sort of skills that you won't get from a average training, doing something like that to more support them. That's definitely one thing that's helped me so far. But I think also like, I think there is a sort of personal element to it that could be developed maybe through organizations. So I think being more comfortable to just speak my mind in general and like input my ideas and that kind of stuff have been because of what I have almost exposed myself to. So along my journey so far, I've been privileged to be able to do things like go on solo trips and that stuff and go to a bunch of different like networking events and that stuff and meet loads of different people and see different things that I wouldn't see before. Like I remember I went to Italy and they have a palace over there where like the flower like vases, if you see the amount of detail on them and like the quality, the materials that I used to create them is crazy. And I would never ever have thought like that existed. Like it wouldn't cross my mind at all if I hadn't have gone and seen it. But now that I've gone and seen it, it's like, okay, cool. That could be something that someone shoots for in the future. They're like, okay, I want my flowers to be in a vase as decorative as that. But I never would have thought that if I hadn't have gone and seen it. So how can we almost increase the exposure that our employees are getting to, if it's more cultures or if it's different ways of like communication or different styles of leadership and that kind of stuff, because it's not a one size fits all for some of these things, right? There's going to be different modes of things that work for different people. So yeah, how can we expose people to more to be able to create more, I guess, well-rounded employees, if that makes sense?
Well, it's powerful. That it does make 100% sense. And once again, because we're a social mobility organization, we speak about putting a social mobility lens on the career journey of your early careers professionals. And and looking at things from a kid's lens. What are the things that that person would not have been exposed to, would not know, that we should be able to put in front of them as a menu? And one of the things you've also shared about that is exposure to as many different things as possible so they can see what is possible, where they could be. They can learn about different communications and different cultures. And when I was a early careers professional in my first professional job, the person sitting next to me was like, James, you tie your tie like a schoolboy. Come here, let me show you how to tie a tie properly. And he taught me the double Windsor. And that's because I grew up in a single brick household in South London where everyone that short tie. I love that you touched. It's really important, no matter the size of your company, the size of your intake, to encourage your early careers professionals to create a mastermind group amongst themselves. And that mastermind group, the goal is for them to be seen as a future. It could be, the goal is to have a really strong 90 days. It could be to be seen as a sought after future leading with an organization. It could just be to be retained after the first or second year of the apprenticeship. But having that joint goal and having kind of structured conversation or structured agenda helps your early careers professional to get up to speed faster, to create those safe spaces, to create those environments where they can say, how do I approach about salary, no, not just salaries, but I'll give you another example is we placed a young lady into a fast growth business, amazing organization who wanted to generate success because they cared about diversity inclusion. They wanted to build diversity into their business, even though because at 200 staff, they had grown organically, but they had grown organically by staff referring other people into their business. And that meant that most of their workforce looked exactly the same. They came from similar backgrounds. And they were now the place to create a early careers program. She was their first Muslim hire. Now, what that meant, because she was their first Muslim hire, even though they had 200 staff at that stage, was they didn't have a prayer room. And this young lady was very, very scared to talk to her manager about having a prayer room. Because she was the only hire at that age in this business. She was able to come back to Gen Success and say, look, James, how do I approach this? And I was like, don't worry, I've got you. So we spoke to arrange a prayer room for this young lady and alternative days when she had to pray, they were able to organize for her to work from home as well. So this just shows the importance of being able to find some ways to create that safe space and a mastermind group or what you call a co-working group to help your early careers talent to find their feet. I love that. High five moment, Nathan. Love this. Now, I'm conscious of the time, but I know there's so much more we can cover. However, there's three more questions to cover with you. Is how do you see your role in the next generation of success, and what drives you to continue your work?
So sorry, could you just repeat that?
Oh, yeah. So I'm conscious of the time, but there's so much value we can still get from you. So I've got a few more questions I would ask. The first one is, how do you see your role in helping the next generation achieve success, and what drives you to continue this work?
Wow. Okay, cool. I think I see my role almost as a bit of a bridge, to be honest. So I think I don't know why, but from a young age, I've always like been very, I guess, I want to say like work oriented, but just focused. I don't know. I don't know what to call it. Maybe ambitious, maybe focused or whatever. Shout out to my parents again. But yeah, I think what that's meant for me is I'm not scared to go like to do the extra. And I think because of that, I've experienced a lot of things and I guess done things that like a lot of people might not have had the chance to. I think I'm also quite blessed to be in the position I'm in right now, right? Like working in one of the biggest companies in the world, like doing public speaking and like getting exposure again to like a lot of different like areas and like atmospheres and that kind of stuff. So I think I see my role as a bridge to the people that haven't had a chance to experience some of the things I have and like learn some of the things that I have from like the positions I've been in. And then those experiences and positions, like how can I help disseminate that information to other like Gen Zs and almost like change other people's mindsets and help them to see their life as being like in their control. I think I'd say like my mission almost is to help Gen Z achieve like or create the life that they want using I'm going to say the cards that they have right now. Because I remember I was speaking to someone else who left the company I work at a couple of years ago. And one of the things they said to me was, we all start off in life with a set of cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all have somewhere we're trying to get to, but we need certain cards to get there.
Mm-hmm.
and we might not have all the cards that we need. So our journey from birth to getting that to that place is, okay, what cards do I need to get and how do I get these cards? So yeah, I guess you could say I'm maybe a bit of a card dealer, and like helping people like find the cards they need to get to where they want to be.
Wow. I love that. I love that. And this really brings me to something I heard from the team. And a little birdie told me that you're looking to launch a public speaking community in 2025. Now,
Yes.
can you tell us what inspired this idea? Tell us more about it. What does community aim to achieve? How will it empower others? Tell me more.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that came from when I started public speaking, there were quite a few people that would like reach out and say like, oh, what you're doing is really sick. I want to get into public speaking as well, but I'm not really sure where to start. And I'd give them advice, but for me, what helped most on my journey was speaking to like other people that have done it. And I guess being able to like even watch them do a talk and then be like, okay, cool. This is how he does this. This is how I can do it. Or, okay, this is how she changes her body language or her tonality when she is going to deliver this really powerful point. I need to almost like change that a bit so I can do that. And just having conversations with some of these people, right? So it's like we saw that that didn't really exist in the public speaking space, especially for Gen Zs. Like the only place I can really think of when it comes to public speaking, and like I'm sure a lot of other people think of, is Toastmasters, right? But I don't know, feels a bit like disconnected almost, to be honest. So we were like, why don't we just create something where we can bring public speakers together, other people that want to like develop their public speaking for whatever reason or become public speakers themselves. Because I think there's a difference between being a public speaker and being able to speak in public. So for those kind of two groups, I guess, bringing those people together to develop their public speaking, meet other people in the space, grow like together, share information, that kind of stuff. And also ultimately like become better people. So I think there's an element of growing as a speaker. That's one thing. But if we're launching a community, we want to be enriching the people that are part of it, and helping them to grow as people and not just speakers.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Now, we are coming, unfortunately, towards the end of this amazing podcast. It's been such a great conversation with yourself. But before we leave, what's one piece of advice that you'd like to leave the audience today, to inspire them on their own success journey?
Sure. I forgot to say as well, actually, the community is a Gen Z community. For anyone that might be interested that's listening. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, Nathan John, if you want to find out more. I'd say last piece of advice is I'm going to kind of go back to something I kind of covered already, to be honest, but not really. I think for a lot of us, we look at where we are now and we look at what's been done already and use that to decide if we can get to, or where we can get, let me say. So coming from like South London, looking at the people that are around or were around me, I could have used that to decide where I was going to be like in the next 10, 20 years, let's say. But one thing, if there's anything I've learned like over the past 5 years, is that where you are now doesn't determine where you can get to. Like the phrase the world is your oyster is very much so true. Like I can't remember how many people away, maybe like 6 people away from the Queen or something like that. So where you are now is not a definition of where you want to be. Like the situation you're in right now, it may look like it's going to be tough, and it probably is, if I'm going to be honest. And it may feel at times like there isn't hope of you getting there, or there's no chance, but like there always is. The situation you're in now doesn't determine the destination that you desire to be in. And I think remembering that at all times, like no matter how impossible it might seem, like it's very doable. You might just need to have a conversation with someone else that's in a similar position or change the things that you're tuning into. Someone else that I listen to quite a bit, Jonathan Robson, he says that you turn into what you tune into.
Mm.
So the things that you're watching, the things that you're like taking in all the time and that stuff, like that's what you become. So you might need to make certain changes like that to believe it's possible, but it is.
I love this. I love this. That was powerful. And for those job seekers, what Nathan is saying there is you're only one application away.
Mm.
You're only one application away. So just keep on applying, keep on listen to what we shared in today's journey around. It's a battle between you and you, and improving every single day so that the application, yourself, your skill sets can get you close to where you want to get to. And if you're in a career already, we say you're only one conversation away from having a defining career moment. So, develop those skill sets. Remember that it's we're told growing up that let your work speak for itself. But actually, when you get into the world of work, you know that yes, you have to deliver quality work. That's what's expected. But you also need a way to showcase that work that it's been done by you, and that you build that reputation of a sort of future type of reputation you want to create in that organization. Now, it has been a powerful talk. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how they can get hold of you, how they can follow you. I know you've mentioned already, but I really want to give you an opportunity.
The last bit faded out a bit. I didn't really hear it. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, it's been such an incredible talk. I know that there's lots of people here who would love to find out, would love to stay in touch with you, follow you, and even find out more about the community. How
Yep.
how can they do that?
Okay, cool. So firstly, LinkedIn. I'm mostly active on there, to be honest. So yeah, just type my name, Nathan John. Head over to my website as well, nathanjohnenterprises.com. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, not as active on there, but Nathan J. John. Those are my handles.
Wow. Mr. Nathan John, can I just say thank you for joining us? It has been such a pleasure to have you. I've learned so much. I've got books and papers of notes because it felt like such a marathon. If you guys have loved and have learned so much from this, have been inspired, we'd love you to like and comment and share this podcast with your network. We're going to come back with so many more amazing guests, just like Nathan, who has shared with you lots of amazing tips. Can I say high five to you? We can't wait to celebrate your success and our success come the end of the year with glass of champagne or or mojito, or like non-alcoholic beverages, however you like to celebrate. The key thing, we can't wait to celebrate our successes at the end of the year. And even if we haven't achieved the goals we set out to achieve, remember, it's about the process. It's about celebrating the people we become in pursuit of that end goal. Guys, thank you so much for being part of this community, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Stay blessed and